Mr. Johns, are we all set to go? All right. Very good. Hey, good evening, everybody. Hate to end social hour. Christopher Larson tells us we're live, ready to go. Good to have you on a beautiful April evening. But we'll agree the temperature is better than last week, right? So we're good. Tonight, once again, Rob Griebentrog is here with us on-site international prayer, which will give us our invocation following our Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor.
Let's pray. Father, I love you, and I thank you tonight again for the liberty and the privilege to pray ahead of this meeting. Lord, you do all things well, and Lord, your hand has definitely been at work in our community. Many years ago, up to the present day, and looking ahead to the future, we continue to pray for your best here for Westfield, our citizens, our students, and more. Father, tonight we come here, each of us have ideas of how to make the city, bring the city from good to greater, to better, and from good to great, and great to greater still. But Father, we desire your best. And so, Lord, we ask for your best tonight. And the ideas that we come here with, the presentations, the discussions, the questions, the counsel, and we pray for your best, bringing it all together, that we would see from your hand even greater things here for this community and its people. Father, again, as I often pray again tonight, Lord, that the words of our mouths and that the meditations of our hearts would be pleasing to you. And Lord, if they're not quite there yet, Lord, please bring them to that place. You are our best. We seek your face tonight. We seek your hand as well. Thank you for your blessing, for your grace, for your mercy, and all your goodness to us here in Westfield. We bless your holy name tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Rob, thank you. Mr. Johns, would you care to run the meeting tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, certainly will. Okay, Cindy Gossard, apparently the entire clerk's office is down with some bug. Cindy, are you here remotely?
I am.
Thank you, good. Would you please call the roll?
Cindy Spoljaric.
Here.
Scott Fry.
Here.
Troy Patton.
Here.
Mike Johns.
Here.
Jake Gilbert.
Here.
Joe Edwards.
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, changes to the agenda. I've got two changes. One that was made prior to this evening, and that was the removal of the preservation ordinance. We're still working on that, and that will probably appear on our May 9th agenda. The second announcement is that Resolution 22-106, which is under new business this evening, it is under new business for an introduction purpose only. It was noted as up for adoption, but it is not. It's up for introduction only, and adoption consideration for that resolution will be on May 9th. First item then on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for the March 28th meeting. Councilors, do I have any changes in those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion made to approve them?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Cindy Spoljaric. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Cindy Spoljaric.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thanks, Cindy. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the claims docket for April 11th, 2022. Councilors, do you have any questions regarding the claims?
I had a question about, well, I don't know what line it is, but Taft, Stenius, and Hollister for $72,567 on the non-retainer fee. I was just curious, does that have to do with veracity, or was that something separate?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with veracity. That's a number of, I think it's 52 matters, 2 months' worth. Be happy to go over them.
Just in January, that was
No.
from some of the other things we've been dealing with. Okay.
Councilors, any other questions?
Just one question for Public Works. It was about the Grand Junction Plaza. Just to bother you. I noticed there was some kind of change order, number 2 and 3, with a payment to Wilhelm. Can you briefly describe what that was? I think it was about 1.9 million.
So that is that is not a change order. There was a change order that was approved at the RDC at the last meeting, which was a negative change order for sending $700,000 back. That is the final invoice, the closeout invoice for Grand Junction Plaza. So that is the remaining spent.
Are you within the amount for the ban?
Yes, we are $700,000 under the contract amount. And then, so there is still capacity in that ban that can be, the first thing that we will be doing is sending out an RFP for the ice skating rink and the equipment associated with that. And then we can decide as a group what we want to do with any additional proceeds from the bond or the ban at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Scott Willis and seconded by Troy Patton to approve the claims docket for April 11th, 2022. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Cindy. Moving on, we're going to have a proclamation this evening by Mayor Cook.
Thank you. Kayla, we're on. Come forward. This is across the nation, across our state, and certainly in the city of Westfield. You didn't know you were coming up here? Yeah. It's okay, all right. This is Volunteer Appreciation Month all across America, and we can think of no city that benefits more from volunteers than the city of Westfield, not only through a lot of our endeavors, the Grand Junction Task Group, the Spring Mill Station Group, our Westfield Sports Commission, down to Westfield Welcome. How many volunteers do you use throughout the year? Hundreds. How many does it take for you to put on Colts Camp, for example? A few hundred. And that's what our citizens come forward and do that. So we want to recognize these people. And it's, as I said, it's all across the country. And I see here that since 2017, when we invented Westfield Welcome, over 10,000 hours of our citizens have volunteered their times to make this city what it is today. So I would like to declare this month of April as Volunteer Appreciation Month and urge all of our citizens to continue to give of their services back to our city. And you will see that that happens. Please do. Thank you so much.
The next item on our agenda is going to be an update as to the progress on State Road 32. I think we've got Jonathan Nail is going to address us. Jennifer?
Good evening, Council. For the record, John Nail, Director of Public Works, City of Westfield. With me tonight is Jennifer Beck with the Indiana Department of Transportation, who's the project manager for INDOT on State Road 32. Go ahead and go next slide. So we're here tonight to give a quick update on the status of State Road 32. I know the council is aware, but for those joining in tonight, State Road 32 Reconstruction project is a project from Poplar Street to just east of East Street in our downtown. The project widens State Road 32 from a 2-lane roadway to a 4-lane roadway with a landscaped median in the middle, so 2 lanes in each direction. Includes pedestrian facilities as well as a roundabout at the East Street and 32 intersection. Since we last spoke, go to the next slide, Kevin. Since we last spoke, I wanted to give a quick update on some of the design things we've been working on. We have been working with INDOT to gain hydraulic approvals for a box culvert crossing underneath State Road 32, as well as other hydraulic coordination with developers in the area. We've been continuing coordination with on historic mitigation with our advisory team, which was part of the environmental process on State Road 32. Pictured on the right, you can see from a late March site visit to the 102 South Union building, some of the hand-hewn beams in that facility. And we are working with our advisory team to locate a relocation site for that building, as well as some other historic mitigation features to the project. And then additionally, we've been working hard on utility relocation. This really could be the utility relocation is really a project in and of itself. There are many utilities in this corridor, all of which need to be out of the way of our contractor for the road reconstruction. Most importantly is the coordination with Duke Energy Group to get our overhead electric lines underground in our downtown. So we've been working hard on that item as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer, who will talk about right-of-way acquisition, as INDOT is the right-of-way acquisition agency on the project.
Thank you, John. On the next slide here, we do have good progress on the schedule for right-of-way acquisition. We have a total of 39 parcels on this project, and we finished appraisals as of April 1st. We're actively in negotiations. We've made 26 offers as of today. We still have 13 to go. And so far, we have 9 parcels secured in some form, be it verbal or in writing, but we're working through the paperwork process on that end. But unfortunately, the not good news for right-of-way acquisition is that with the appraisals just now being finalized in April, we have seen a substantial increase in the land values, specifically on the commercial properties on this project. So we'll talk a little bit more about cost increases on the next slide.
So since we last spoke, give you guys a snapshot of where we stand on the cost estimate. Our original estimate on the project back in 2018, when we were scoping this project out, was just over $15 million. That was the basis for the INDOT Westfield interlocal agreement. We spoke about a year ago with an updated cost estimate that had the project at $17 million, just over $17 million. And tonight we are giving you a snapshot of where we stand based on some of the cost increases we are seeing, just to present it to council to ensure that everyone's well informed on these estimates. So you can see we are unfortunately at a total cost estimate of $21.9 million as we stand today. The cost increases on this are mainly in right-of-way acquisition. You can see approximately $3.5 million increase in right-of-way acquisition. That goes to what Jennifer spoke about these rising valuations in our downtown area. And then the other increase is due to construction costs, about a $1.5 million increase in construction costs. We're seeing market-wide, not just in Westfield, Hamilton County, but even statewide, material and labor shortages are really adding cost to construction bids. So as a result, we felt like it was prudent to go ahead and go back to our construction cost estimate, update unit prices accordingly. The biggest changes were in asphalt prices. So asphalt emulsion costs are on the rise due to the conflict in Ukraine and some of the fuel costs associated with that. Additionally, we added a 10% contingency. So the number you see before you was last 7.8, now it's 9.3 million for construction costs. That is inclusive of a 10% contingency. We think that's prudent based on the uncertainty in the marketplace and where we stand today. That was not in the previous construction cost estimate. So go ahead, next slide, Kevin. Jennifer's going to talk about what the right-of-way estimate includes.
Yeah, obviously that increase is the more substantial piece. So I wanted to explain what's in that number. We can't go into specifics on, per parcel acquisition costs at this point, but all in, that number includes the land improvements and damages to any properties that aren't total acquisitions in that number. We also have relocation entitlements for not only the property owners, but any tenants in those properties are entitled to relocation. Excess land is actually already reduced from that number. We have about 2.5 million in excess land. That's not included in that because we are taking that on the state side, knowing that we will turn around and dispose of any excess and make the money back by auctioning it off. So that number is not included in there. And then finally, right-of-way services cost is also in there as a flat rate. And to John's point, on the construction side, for the past 4 months, we have seen average 15% higher bids come in over estimate since January. And we have been actively on NDOT side statewide updating our unit pricing up to a week before letting because it's so variable right now. So unfortunately, that contingency isn't a great thing to add to construction, but at this point, it's so in the air that we want to make sure we're giving a good picture as of right now, a snapshot in time, what our total number looks like. And from the right-of-way perspective, we're not market trend analysis people for right-of-way acquisition, so this is truly a snapshot in time. We are accounting, since we have appraisals in, for what we can say is the most accurate as of now, but we still have negotiations to go, and we do have a couple parcels flagged to go to condemnation, and the outcomes of that is truly kind of beyond our control. But we wanted to give you guys the best picture we could as of today.
So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
So Jonathan, I guess my first question is that our initial interlocal agreement within that said that we would share 50/50 in the $15 million cost. What's the sharing going to look like with a $22 million cost?
I'll let Jennifer answer that one.
I figured that would be the first question. NDOT is actively looking at this and keeping track of it. We do intend at this point to continue that 50/50 match for this overage, but until we know what that final number is, we can't commit to a specific dollar amount. But we do continue to expect that 50/50 split.
Okay.
I should add, we will amend the agreement to address that once we have a more final number. But since right-of-way is still a lot of parcels outstanding and there could be some swings either way, we don't want to finalize that interlocal until we have a more finalized number. But we will amend the agreement to address that.
That's much appreciated.
Can I ask a question? I'm a bit confused because we would be potentially sharing in the cost of the overage, and this includes the right-of-way acquisition, which was supposed to be on NDOT and would with any other project, of course. But then the excess land, you guys auction it off and keep the money.
Yeah, which is why that's not included in the estimate. So we have taken that out of the estimate.
Okay.
So yeah, imagine a parcel is being acquired for $1 million, of which we're only acquiring a quarter acre out of a half acre parcel. These are very rough numbers, but in our estimate, that's $500,000, not $1 million, even though NDOT is paying that property owner $1 million for the entire parcel. Does that make sense?
It does.
Do you want to
It's a
touch
bit
on
of a challenge to actually think about this and the increasing costs, and I know that through the state, they're getting more money from the feds, if I'm not mistaken, than they thought.
To simplify it, NDOT will pay more in right-of-way acquisition because they have some total take parcels
Yeah.
than what is being accounted for in this project as a contributing cost. So they may be spending more money than there actually is part of the project. I don't
But
know if
that's
that
not in
clarified or
writing yet. So, I mean, we're moving forward on this, but we don't have any of this arrangement in writing.
So correct, we have the maximum cap at the 50/50 up to the $50 million estimate. I'm telling you, as last time we talked, that our intent in good faith is to continue that participation. Can be put in writing, but we don't want to amend an agreement with a number and then it change again, and we amend the agreement again and again as project costs. I mean, this is a snapshot in time. I would give you a different number a week ago. I'll give you a different number next week. So for us, it doesn't make sense to go through multiple iterations of that. So whatever, again, comfort level to provide a letter or something, if that helps, we're happy to do that. But we don't want to tie up our legal resources just to continue to try to chase this dollar amount that's going to keep changing. But we do have unfortunately, a requirement to have not to exceeds on our interlocal agreements. So that's why we always have that referenced, and we would have to continue to go through amendment processes. But our business decision intent is to continue that 50-50 split.
I understand. It's just, it's very challenging, obviously, as a smaller jurisdiction than NDOT. It's a lot bigger chunk for us to eat half of an additional cost like that.
So Jonathan, from a timing standpoint, are we still on schedule to do the letting in November, December this year?
We haven't officially moved the letting, but I think it's fair to say that we'll move that to spring of '23 based on some of the timelines we're seeing from utility companies relocating. Again, material shortages is a real problem in our industry right now. And so I spoke about utility relocation and utility coordination previously. All those utilities need to move out of the roadway to be clear of any contractor equipment during construction. Those utilities need to move before construction starts. And it doesn't really make sense to let a project, a year before we know utilities are going to be out of the way. So we will probably shift that letting date into spring of '23. We're still working through some of the details on that schedule.
Okay, so then I can assume that we won't have to pay anything until spring of '23, correct?
Yeah, the way it works would be it'll be publicly bid, and the low bidder, if awardable, will be awarded, and then NDOT will essentially send us an invoice for the total amount that we owe NDOT on that cost.
So I don't know if you can answer this question or if Jeremy has to answer it, but will we have enough funds available at that point in time with the increased cost?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, you can feel free to chime in, but I will say we're looking at the financing options. We have a pretty good cash flow projection for all of our projects, and I think we're going to share some of those projections and priorities with you all in the near future. But I can say that our road impact fee fund is doing very well right now. We are ahead of our projections in that cash flow spreadsheet. But Jeremy, you can.
Yeah, so the only thing that I would add to that, excuse me, is that as we work through the streetscape portion and what those costs are, I think we need to evaluate it as a whole. John's not incorrect, and we do have funds in the road impact fees. We just have to decide as a group whether or not we want to completely decimate the road impact fee fund, or if we are looking at financing or cash funding some of these other streetscape improvements if we want to look at that holistically to try to find another funding source.
Right, and I understand, I'm kind of looking at the streetscape as a separate issue at this point. And I was just figuring that if we've increased our all-in costs from $7.5 million to $11 million.
Yeah.
And when you and I spoke last, we were figuring the $7.5 million, but we were figuring on needing to pay that out in December of this year.
Correct.
If we're pushing it to next year, then we've got another 2 or 3 months to acquire the additional.
So the contemplation was always first quarter of '23. However, this will more likely look into second quarter of '23. I think we got to continue to evaluate that and see how revenues are coming in. They're coming in at a great rate right now. If anything changes in the economy, development slows down, things like that, we'll have to evaluate that as we go. It's 11.5 million or whatever our 50% is going to be tough out of that specific line item without emptying it.
I guess I just wanted to make the public aware that you and I have been working on this, and tracking this on a monthly basis. So
Absolutely.
We're pretty sure we're going to be pretty darn close to having that number.
We are. We're going to get as close as we absolutely can, and John and I track it on a weekly basis. And so, yeah, we'll keep you informed.
Councilors?
How does this impact the Jersey Street extension? Because wasn't that also going to be paid with those funds, with our road impact fees?
Yeah, and we're still going down that path, so we still plan to pay for Jersey Street as well with road impact fees. Again, to Jeremy's point, we are monitoring the fund on that aspect.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Jennifer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Lots of stuff going on with Route 32, and they're doing so much behind the scenes that we're not aware of, but I would also welcome and encourage everybody that can attend to attend the streetscape presentation at Grand Park, which, Jonathan, when is that scheduled for? Is that next Tuesday? Streetscapes presentation, Grand Park?
14th, I believe, is the open house.
April 14th, 5 to 7, Grand Park. Okay, thank you.
5 p.m. at the church right behind us.
I think they switched it to Grand Park.
Did they?
I think they did, anticipating a larger number of folks attending. Okay, moving on then to old business. First item tonight under old business is Resolution 22-101, fiscal plan for Ordinance 22-04 Chatham Hills Phase 20. It's up for adoption consideration this evening. And Pam, are you going to? Pam Howard?
Yes, so before you again, I have 100% voluntary annexation along with the associated fiscal plan resolution for 2 acres located at the southeast corner of 203rd Street and Tomlinson Road. As shown in Table 5 of the resolution, the estimated net impact for this annexation is $130 over the next 5 years. This item did receive a public hearing on March 14th and is eligible for your adoption this evening. I do have the petitioners available for questions, but they do not plan to present. Thank you.
Okay. And this, in this particular land, this is the tennis courts, the new tennis courts for
Yes.
Chatham Hills area. Okay. Southwest corner of Tomlinson and 203rd Street, southeast corner. Okay. Any questions, counselors? Okay, we're going to handle these separately as 2 separate and take 2 separate votes. So can I have a motion to approve Resolution 22-101?
Motion to approve Resolution 22-101.
Second.
Motion made by Scott Fry, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike, hello,
Yes.
yeah, I can't hear anybody. Mike,
Did we lose?
No, let's just hold on. I think Chris is working on it and make sure everybody can hear.
okay,
That's connected.
It is connected.
I think I got it. Jay Gilbert,
Yes. Okay, all right. Back in business.
Edwards
Yeah,
was a
Chris.
yes, and Scott Willis was a yes, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, so motion carries 7-0.
Okay. That was part 1, okay, the approval of the fiscal plan. The part 2 is ordinance 22-04, which is the actual voluntary annexation of Chatham Hills Phase 20. Again, had a council introduction on March 14th with a public hearing on the 14th, and it's up for adoption consideration tonight. Councilors, any questions? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy, can you call the roll, please?
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item tonight is ordinance 22-14, amending the American Rescue Plan Act of the City of Westfield. We had a council introduction on the March 28th meeting, and it's up for adoption.
To see this in table form, and that is our proposed use of funding, and this is just for this first allotment again, and we will be getting our second allotment tranche I believe next month. So we will have another 4.9 million specifically for our nonprofits to apply for funding. So, and the rest of that's,
Questions, counselors?
that premium pay has already been paid to. That's just to reflect what we have.
And I just was wondering, the $500,000 we're setting aside for nonprofits, how are we deciding again which nonprofits that we're going to?
So we have a rubric that goes with the assessment. It's a two-phase kind of application. And we have a group of 3 people that were appointed to do this review outside of our council. So they are in receipt of those. I do receive the applications. They go to these 3 people who then use the rubric that we've passed at committee to evaluate those proposals. So if they pass that first test, then they go to the second test, the second part of the application. So, and the initial deadline for the first part of the application is this Friday.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. Any other questions, counselors? Can I have a motion then on ordinance 22-14?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 22-14.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Cindy Spaljarek, for the approval of ordinance 2214, amending the American Rescue Plan Act of the City of Westfield. Cindy Gasser, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike John,
Yes.
Cindy Spaljarek,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to new business, and we've got several items of new business tonight. First item, ordinance 22-12, Harvest Trails Annexation / Robinson. Council introduction, April 11th, public hearing, April 11th, and then it will be up for adoption consideration on the 9th. Pam Howard is going to fill us in.
Yes, so before you have a 100% voluntary annexation for 36 acres located on the west side of the Monon Trail, approximately 2,000 feet north of 191st Street and part of the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD district. This item is noticed for a public hearing this evening. It has been properly noticed and advertised, and it will be eligible for adoption at your May meeting, at which time the fiscal plan will be presented. I do have the petitioner here. They do not plan to present, but are available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing at 7:35 and give it a minute or so. Kevin, do we have any cards at all?
Nope, not on this item.
Okay. Okay. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:36. Counselors, you have any questions? Okay. Hearing none then, we'll move on. We'll look forward to adoption consideration on May 9th, and we'll move on to our next ordinance, ordinance 22-13, Harvest Trails Annexation / Briggs property. Again, up for council introduction this evening. Pam?
Okay, thank you. Again, this is 100% voluntary annexation for 20 acres located at 612 East 191st Street, and again, part of the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD district. This was again properly noticed for a public hearing tonight and will be eligible for adoption at your March meeting, and at which time the fiscal plan will be presented. As with the last one, the petitioner is here but does not plan to present, but is available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to open a public hearing then at 7:37. Kevin, any cards?
No, sir.
Okay, let's give it a few seconds here. Okay, having no cards, no comments, we'll close the public hearing at 7:38. And we'll look forward to seeing this annexation along with the previous ordinance at our May 9th meeting. And moving on now then, we'll look at ordinance 22-15, the Chatham Hills PUD Amendment 9. And I think we've got our new planner, Weston Rogers? Is that correct? He's going to fill us in on what this ordinance is about.
Yes, good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Weston Rogers, Community Development Department. The item being introduced before you tonight is an amendment to the Chatham Hills PUD. The proposed PUD amendment is related to the 21-acre real estate parcel located at 859 Chatham Ridge Boulevard. The petitioner is proposing to divide the subject property into 2 individual estate-style lots. The custom architecture of the proposed estate homes varies from the default Chatham Hills PUD architectural standards. The proposed amendment includes architectural elevations of the homes to be constructed on the property. The petition is scheduled to be heard at the May 4th APC meeting. Matt Skelton of Church Hill and Atrium is here tonight to present the details of the project. He's available to answer any questions, as am I, should you have any for the staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Weston.
Hi, my name's Kathleen Bose. I'm an attorney at Church Hill and Antrim with offices located at 116 North Union Street here in Westfield. I'm joined by my colleague Matt Skelton, and our client Tracy Haddad is the owner of a piece of real estate located at 859 Chatham Ridge Boulevard. We're here tonight to introduce a proposed PUD amendment to the Chatham Hills subdivision. In June of 2020, a replat of Chatham Hills Section 3 was recorded that combined 44 lots and portions of common areas into one singular lot. This is subject of this amendment. Ms. Haddad plans to divide this 21-acre section into 2 custom estate lots. Those homes are likely to exceed $2 million in value each. The lots will remain a part of the Chatham Hills subdivision. The custom architecture has been designed by David Roush Studios, and the architecture of these homes vary from the default Chatham Hills architectural standards, which is the primary reason for this request. Additionally, some of the default perimeter landscaping standards are proposed to be modified, such as the external street frontage landscaping requirements and the buffer yard requirements, in order to preserve the existing character of the real estate. We've worked closely with Chatham Hills, and they are in favor of this amendment, and we're happy to respond to any questions that you may have if you have any.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions?
Just one. I was looking at some of the building materials, and they don't seem to be anything that we typically use, a few of the materials, and I didn't know if they were included or needed to be, if that needed to be called out specifically in the PUD, because we talk about the architectural standards, but not the building materials.
We will.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, we look forward to seeing you at the APC on May 4th, and then hopefully back here in the middle of June for an adoption consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is ordinance 22-16, the Ibeach at Grand Park. It's up for council introduction this evening, going to the APC on May 4th, APC recommendation June 6th, scheduled to be back here on June 13th. Rachel Remenschneider?
That's right.
Good
evening.
Also one of our new planners is going to give us some background.
All right. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is the Ibeach 31 at Grand Park PUD. The proposal is for approximately 3 acres at the northeast corner of 181st Street and the northwest corner of 181st Street and the future Grand Park Boulevard extension. The property is currently zoned open industrial plan development. The PUD proposes a recreational facility which will include outdoor volleyball and other beach sports, as well as a restaurant, bar, and fitness center. The item is before you this evening for introduction. Eric Douthit of Church Hill and Antrim is here to present details of the project. He is available to answer questions, as am I, if you have any for staff. Thank you.
Good morning, or good afternoon, evening, members of the council.
It's been a long day. I'm pleased to introduce today the new Ibeach facility. Probably many of you are familiar with the existing Ibeach facility. This is going to be a permanent home for Katie and Bart's businesses. They're moving up here. There are 3 specific changes that we're requesting from the underlying development standards and use standards. Number 1 is the use itself. This is an unannexed piece that's surrounded by both Wheeler Landing and the Grand Park Village. This is going to be consistent with their uses generally. The 2 other changes deal with a change with regards to the landscaping. Given the unique use with the outdoor volleyball and beach sports, we think that it's going to just be a great addition there. And the last is architectural standard with regards to the roofing material. Given the nature of the building, it's still an expensive roofing material to use, but one that's going to be necessary for this particular use. With regards to a neighborhood meeting in this particular circumstance, we've reached out to each of our neighbors, the schools, Wheeler Landing, and not D&W Farms, but their representative, Hinkey Development. We have meetings planned or have met with them. We will also, to the extent that we need a neighborhood meeting, let this council know when that would be, and we'll invite you. So if you've got any questions about that, we'll be happy to answer them. If you've got any questions today, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. We also have Katie and Bart here today, and they can answer questions as well. Otherwise, we're excited to take this through the process.
Thank you, Eric. Councilors?
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
To the west of this parcel is a strip, if I'm not mistaken, and we have a road improvement coming through there, right? Or there's...
To the direct west of this parcel is a small parcel that will continue to be used by owned by D&W Farms. I've spoken with both Jonathan Nail at Engineering last week about this, and we've got a meeting with the folks over at Hinkey. Hopefully, we've reached out over the course of spring break. We hope to meet with them this week and see if there's a way to make that more usable for everybody and still be financially viable for all of the parties. That's not a guarantee that that will work. This has been a long way coming, and there have been discussions that have taken place, but hopefully we'll come up with a way to make that entire parcel usable for everybody.
Yeah, it just seems like it's going to be too small to do a whole lot with, so.
I think I would agree that there's not much that can happen on that parcel to the west if it's left the way that it is. And that would be unfortunate.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Eric, look forward to seeing you back here. All right. Moving on then. We've got Resolution 22-105, approving the Plan Commission order on Lantern Commons. It's up for adoption consideration this evening. And Jeremy, I didn't know if you were going to talk about this or if we're going to have Jim Crawford.
Yeah, I believe Jim's on the line. I was going to open it up and turn it over to him. So you did a nice job introducing it. This is a resolution approving certain changes to the Lantern Commons economic development area and creating an allocation area for Front Street partners. And then, yeah, Jim is online and can explain further. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in. Jim Crawford from Taft Law Firm. At the end of last year, the existing allocation area for that tract at the northwest corner of South Union and 161st Street was dissolved. There was a large amount of that was zoned residential. It now has been reclassified, I shouldn't say zoned, it was classified residential. It's now been reclassified as commercial, undeveloped. We are, by this motion, reestablishing that allocation area so that that Front Street project can proceed. The Redevelopment Commission at its meeting on March 21st and adopted the declaratory resolution. The APC did their order on the 21st. And now under the statute, it comes to you for approval of the Plan Commission order, which is a necessary step before the RDC can advertise for a confirmatory hearing on the development resolution. I'll be happy to answer any questions about the process. And this ultimately, if things go as planned, will be coming back to you in the form of an economic development revenue bond, which is payable from TIF from that project to pay for a lot of the infrastructure that will be developed in accordance with the plan down there.
Thank you, Jim. Councilors, questions?
I do have a few questions. First of all, we don't have attachment A on this document. Which is kind of
Okay.
integral to what we're doing. I was privy to it because I saw it at the Plan Commission, but I realize it's not here.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't there either.
Is there something, a reason that we would have to entertain a vote on this tonight?
No, it delays. You're not going to have your second meeting in April, so it's a necessary step to proceed with the RDC's hearing. If you don't act on it tonight favorably and it goes to your May meeting, we can't put a notice in the newspaper until you have actually passed this resolution. So we'd miss the RDC's May meeting, I believe, with the publication lead time and have notice in the paper at least 10 days ahead of that hearing. So the RDC, I guess, would have to have a special meeting to keep the project from slipping another month. Otherwise, it wouldn't go to the RDC until their June meeting, which is, I believe, they meet on the third Monday of the month.
So Cindy, to answer your question more simply, it would be nice to have this, otherwise it's going to derail the timeline that we've been working on. You will get to see, obviously, the development agreement has not been introduced or presented to you all, and that is forthcoming as well. The exhibit is simply the public document that was approved by the commission and can be found online, and I will certainly circulate it to you.
By doing this, are we agreeing to 100% of the incremental revenue there going into?
No, all you're doing is establishing the allocation area.
Correct.
The percentage of increment that's being discussed is less than 100%, with the intention, I believe, that the portion that is not pledged to the economic development revenue bonds would go to support the pedestrian bridges in form of a TIF bond for the remainder of that portion.
Right, and all of that is outlined in the development agreement that's yet to be seen. You and Mike and I met and talked about it, and we will continue those meetings. Eric Douthit with Church Hill and Antrim is also setting meetings with you all to talk about that. But to Jim's point, this is simply approving the allocation area, so making any kind of development agreement possible, reestablishing of the economic development area.
All this money goes to public improvement, not
There is no money going anywhere with this action. This action is just establishing the TIF district.
But eventually, these TIF funds will be used for some public improvement.
Assuming that there is a development agreement approved by the board, by the council, and the development moves forward and generates increment, yes, that is true, but none of those things are up for consideration tonight.
So this is just the preliminary step, just approving
Correct.
the area.
Yes.
And then the agreement will come forward at a later date.
That is correct.
I mean, one's kind of dependent on the other, though, correct? It's still dependent, one's dependent on the other.
The development agreement is certainly dependent upon whether or not this economic development and allocation area are established, yes.
I'd like to see the rest of the information first, but, I mean, that's just me.
Well, as I see it, we had this was already allocated as a TIF allocation area, wasn't it?
It was.
It was called Lantern Commons.
Lantern Commons, it still is called Lantern Commons. It was
So-
just modified slightly to remove the residential classification and make it commercial to
Right.
level out the initial tax base.
So
This is-
we would be in the same, we approve this, we're in the same place we are right now. We just have a different area.
Yes, with the
Formally.
exception that there is an allocation area specific to the development that's approved in this TIF district.
Right.
But yeah, it's not committing dollars to anything. All those discussions have yet to come. It just allows that conversation to start happening.
For a specific use.
For that development, yes.
So if this is approved tonight, and then when more details are available in the future, if those details are not pertinent, or not, I guess, to our liking, essentially this is all for nothing.
So, no, not necessarily. The TIF, the allocation area will still be established. So the cadence is, we have this approved, it goes to RDC again for another approval. Following that, there will be an introduction of the development agreement in which we start talking about what the dollars go to and whether or not you all want to support that development project.
You're correct, Councilman Fry, in saying that if ultimately you don't like what the development agreement says, if you don't like the idea of issuing economic development bonds to support the project, no, this does not bind you to that decision. But it does benefit the city from the standpoint of you'll capture that additional TIF revenue that is going to be incumbent in passing this and scrubbing out those residential areas that were within the allocation area.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was a much better question, or answer to my question.
Thank you, Manny. Any other comments, councilors? All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22-105.
Have a second? All right. Okay, do I have, councilors, do I have another comment?
Well, Jeremy, when would you get us Exhibit A that we're missing?
I will email it to you after I'm done at the podium, which is at the end of the meeting, I believe. Yeah, and so it can also be found on a link on
We can
the
look
city
at it
website
right
from the
now.
Plan Commission meeting. Yeah,
Where's that at?
if you go to the city website and go to agendas, open the March,
I believe it was at the Plan Commission.
the March
on
21st
the
Plan Committee. Yep,
21st.
stand by, we're going to pull it up.
Jeremy, is this Exhibit A? Map?
I believe according to the document, the Exhibit A is the actual resolution that the Plan Commission approved.
Oh, okay.
That's not it. So on the screen here, you can see the Exhibit A. Jim, would you mind talking us through what this Exhibit A says in a summary?
In summary, it just says that the base year for the assessments and TIF revenue is the 1st of January 2022. It sets a 25-year term for the allocation area, and that's basically it. And when the Development Commission, when the Redevelopment Commission holds their public hearing, they won't be approving any split of any TIF revenues. They'll just be adopting and confirming this resolution that they adopted previously. As Jeremy said, the particulars of any TIF, specific TIF pledge and bonds and development agreement will come back to you for approval. So you have the bite at the apple at that time to approve specifics. This just sets the groundwork for the capture of the increase in assessed valuation within that allocation area.
Thanks, Jim. And can you also describe the Plan Commission order?
The Plan Commission order approved the plan for the area as being consistent with the comprehensive plan.
That's what this is.
Correct. That is what this is, and that is the Exhibit A.
I have a question, just a quick question. So the 25-year bonds, will that coincide with, sorry, the 25 years will coincide with the bonds? Eric's saying yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that the bonds will be 25 years. It just means that that's the maximum term that you can get increment from the allocation area.
And maybe we asked that before, actually. Is that the same question?
Yeah, I think it was on a different issue, but that's the same. That's the statutory
Yeah.
maximum we can run.
Okay.
But depending on the terms of the bond, it could be 20 or 15 or whatever.
Okay.
Is most advantageous.
Okay. I second.
Okay. Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy Gassard, would you please call the roll?
Joe Edwards,
No.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Cindy.
Might explain my no vote. This outfit down here has put this city in a bad way, and that's a good piece of property that doesn't need to be that way. And here we are piddling around with delay and neglect, and I just feel like they need to get on the stick, and maybe we need to get on the stick too.
Thank you for that, Joe. And I will accept responsibility for the lack of the Exhibit A. That will not happen again.
Okay. Moving on to our next item, interlocal agreement between the City of Westfield and NDOT pertaining to State Road 32 Bridge over Cool Creek. It's up for adoption consideration this evening. Jeremy Lawler is going to, I think, explain what this is about.
Thank you all. For the record, Jeremy Lawler, City of Westfield. Before you for consideration is an interlocal agreement between the City of Westfield and NDOT. NDOT, as a part of their capital improvement plan, are replacing the State Road 32 bridge over Cool Creek, which is directly east of the Willow Creek neighborhood entrance on State Road 32. As part of their capital plan, no dollars from the city is associated with the bridge. However, when we learned that they were replacing the bridge, our Trails Master Plan has a trail identified as the Cool Creek Trail, which extends essentially long-term from our Freedom Trail Park along the Cool Creek corridor all the way down to Cool Creek Park, and then beyond in both cases, far down the road. So we requested that they allow us to partner with them in that project to widen their bridge to accommodate a future grade-separated crossing underneath State Road 32. They have agreed to that, and I am presenting this to you all, which would commit us to paying $400,000 which is the upcharge for widening the bridge to accommodate the trail underneath State Road 32 when we build it. So effectively, as we've learned in the past, tunnels and bridges are very expensive. We will spend $400,000 now as opposed to $6+ million later to create a grade separating crossing for that trail. So essentially, our tunnel will already be there. We just construct the trail up to it on both sides in the future and accommodate our safe pedestrian crossing there.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why can we not do this in the city under 32? I was told we couldn't do it, just couldn't do it. I mean, where we're doing it here for a stream that has more flow than the Wheeler Ditch.
So this is part of why we're asking to enter into this agreement is the cost savings. So to answer your question, Councilor Edwards, you're asking why can't we do a grade separated crossing in our downtown area under 32? Why can't we do a tunnel? A couple reasons. I think one is the high water table that we've seen in that downtown area, but two,
Higher there.
not the groundwater table, no. And two, to add that into the 32 project, I think you'd see substantially increased costs from the $400,000 that we're proposing. And additionally, this isn't our trail master plan, which is helpful in supporting our argument to widen that bridge.
But you are going to have people scooting across 32 with accelerated traffic somewhat. And I don't know, it just makes a lot of sense to me to do the same thing. But, you know, if we can't do it, we can't do it. But it looks crazy to me that you can do it here and you can't do it over there.
I think in a very non-engineering way, I think part of that is the size of the stream. If we're talking about the Thompson drain that runs through Asa Bales and goes underneath, it is a much, much smaller box and pipe. You can't fit people through it. Down here, Cool Creek, as we all know, fills up. The waterway is much larger. Thus, we have the headroom. And
But if it goes to 4 lanes, that you won't keep that pipe. You'll have to put a substantial structure there to hold the street up, and so you're going to be in there.
I don't disagree with you. I guess my point is the head height going under 32 there is going to be like 5 feet. So it's 6 feet tall. So in order to get an 8 or 10 foot clearance underneath 32 there, you have to elevate the whole thing to create the at grade. We investigated that. It can be done. It would just be very, very expensive. We're working in this case to try to be proactive and plan for the future and ultimately save us money down the road.
I'm not against it, but I mean, that would probably flood. I mean.
It will.
Several times. I mean,
Yeah.
quite a few times, which is probably going to be, and I'm just thinking like fire department and people like that, because you're going to get mud on that stuff and people are going to run and slip and break their neck or arms, elbows, whatever. So, I mean, are we kind of factoring all that in? I mean, again, I'm not against it. I'm just saying those are the things that are going to, I mean, if you've seen the water level when that floods, it's going to go over that trail quite often.
It will undoubtedly. And we'll factor that into the maintenance when the time comes. If we want to eliminate the Cool Creek Trail from our master plan, then I guess now would be the time to do that. But there are segments of that trail that will be in the floodway, and there are segments of our existing trails that are underwater during certain times. But yeah, that's contemplated here. When the stream comes out of its banks in a 10-year flood, this section of trail will be underwater.
Yeah.
Well, the road will be underwater too. I've seen the road underwater 2 or 3 times over there.
State Road 32?
Yep.
I
hope we accommodate those changes with the new improvements.
I assume we'll just close the trail.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we would do it in advance. We know largely when water's going to go high, we would close the trail off. Correct.
So Jeremy, I've got a couple questions here. Where will the funds come from to?
This will be a park impact fee funded project.
When do you think the funds will be due? When will the project start?
The interlocal commits us to essentially paying for it between letting and notice to proceed of NDOT's project. NDOT is planning to let this in July of this year, 2023, with a notice to proceed to come thereafter. So it would be August likely of 2023 that we would pay they would invoice us our $400,000 and we would send them a check.
Right. What happens
Sorry,
if
2022. I apologize.
if the project goes over the $1.4 million?
At this point, NDOT is asking us only for $400,000 and are not intending to ask us for any additional dollars if they have changes. If we change the scope of what we are asking for, that would result in additional fee, but there's no intention to do that.
So is there a way to get that memorialized, that $400,000 gets us exactly what we're intending and not a dime more?
I mean, it's stated in here a couple of times.
That's pretty well in there. I'll take another look at it. And there's also a provision I'm going to suggest a change to. They have a non-appropriation provision. We'll probably insist on the same thing. So that way, if those monies aren't available in the park impact fee fund budget, then we're not going to be liable for them.
So, thank you. So as a follow-up to that, then I guess I would ask the question, other than this $400,000 getting us the structure, what other costs are going to be associated with the project that maybe are not taken into account right now?
There are no other costs. NDOT has already paid for the design or are paying for the design. As we stated, there aren't any change orders NDOT's going to be responsible for. So it's a little different in the fact that we're coming in at this a later part, so it's already designed. There's not a whole lot of, unforeseen situations.
Is this prior to where we pick up the 4-lane? The 4-lane's picked up at the roundabout on 38, or on East Street, isn't it? Where we assume the 4-lane, or 32 assumes a 4-lane with a divider.
So, yes, this is beyond the limits of our downtown project.
Okay, so this is 2-lane. And
It is 2-lane today. They're accommodating a 4-lane with the new bridge.
So they're engineering, because there will be tremendous pressure on State Road 32 when this gets going.
I don't disagree with you. They do have a phase 2 and phase 3 of the State Road 32 improvement projects. They being NDOT, phase 2 being Noblesville section. So really like Moontown to Noblesville, and phase 3, which comes in 2026, where Westfield picks up where our project stops, roughly Timberbrick Run, and takes it through into Noblesville. So it'll be a 4-lane section when NDOT's done with all of their phases of the improvement from Westfield to Noblesville.
I have just real quick accounting question. So we were $700,000. We have $700,000 from the Grand Junction ban. We used park impact fees for the playground equipment when we did that. Can we reimburse that back so we have the monies for this out of the park impact fees so it doesn't impact those otherwise? Does that make sense?
It does. Subsequently, we would have to pay for the skating rink and the equipment associated with the skating system at Grand Junction out of impact fees. We have impact fee dollars available for this. So there's several $1 million of impact fees that are sitting that are waiting to be programmed. In the 2022 approved budget, there is dollars for trail connections that would cover the cost of this. So there's no need for an additional appropriation.
Okay.
Jeremy, is there a need to approve this tonight, or can we wait until the May meeting?
I have no issue with you all tabling this and taking it up again in April.
Thank you. If that's the case, I'd like to request that we table the meeting for a month, just so that, we can take a look at that interlocal agreement.
Yeah.
Because I haven't gone through it enough to feel comfortable with it. I think that a lot with some of these things with NDOT, the devil's in the details, and I'd like to really make sure I understand.
Manny
Ask all the
said he's
questions.
going to update something in it too, aren't you?
And Manny's
Yeah,
gonna
so why
update it.
don't we coordinate that, and you all send me your comments, either red line or in a email, bullet point, whatever, and then we'll combine it all and send it back to you. And that way you have it more or less ready to go for the next meeting. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if we could do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Good idea.
Okay, should we take a vote then to
Yeah,
table it?
Mr. Chairman, we had a motion on the floor.
Why, we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, he can either withdraw or somebody can second it, but, it needs to be recognized anyhow.
I didn't motion anything.
I didn't
motion?
I didn't hear a motion.
I don't think you made a
I don't
motion.
think we have one.
Okay, I thought you motioned it, Scott.
So
I'm sorry.
I'd like, if we're going to table, can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Fry to table the interlocal agreement for our next meeting. So Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Cindy Spalgera,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Fred Hatton,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on, our next item is Resolution 22-106, City of Westfield approving the proposed development agreement for the development of certain property of the city. This is the resolution that we alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, where we are looking at it as an introduction only this evening, with a adoption consideration to be done on May 9th. So,
Thank you, Councilor Johns. Again, Jeremy Lawler with the city. Before you tonight is Resolution 22-106, development agreement between the City of Westfield, the Westfield RDC, and Holiday Property Services Midwest Incorporated, associated with the Trails Development PUD at Oak Ridge and State Road 32. Tonight, we have Chris Wilkes here from Holiday to answer your questions and do a short presentation.
thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Mr. President, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, for the record, my name is Chris Wilkes with Holiday Properties. Oh, do we have a presentation? Oh. Thank you. Sorry. That's it. Perfect. Thank you. And I'm here to talk to you about the project called the Trails at Westfield, which is a multifamily project that we've been working on, we Holiday for a couple of years now. If you can go. Some of you may know the location of this project is right here in the Trails PUD. And as all you all know, there's been an awful lot of capital investment along State Road 32 in recent years, restaurants, commercial services, including our own Hampton Inn there, which I'm particularly proud of. And but what's been absent in this corridor is high quality residential component, and that's what we intend to deliver here on this site. And more than just a residential, we want to bring a high quality and I would say dense project that would support the addition of the restaurants and commercial activity that's being invested along the corridor there. And we're asking the City of Westfield to help us in investing in some of those unique and impactful elements of the project through a TIF bond. Next play. So as outlined in the development agreement, the total project cost is $43 million, of which the private sector investment will put in 38.8 or 90% of that. The gross TIF bond, including capitalized interest, issuance costs, and the like, is $4.2 million. The number of units in the project would be 223. The annual real estate taxes generated from the project would be $510,000. In the development agreement, we've maximized the capture rate of that at 75%, which would be $382,898. and then flowing uncaptured would be the balance of 127,632. I mentioned our goal here was to deliver an intense or a high-density multifamily project with unique public elements here. So I want to describe what those are. When I say we want to bring a dense project, going back to the site, it's important to note that the site right now is zoned for multifamily. And when we first started working on this site, we approached it in a more traditional manner, I guess, with 4, 5, 6 separate garden-style walk-up buildings. And we could get around 160 or so units there. And then, but as we looked at the site, we thought we actually were inspired by another project that I'll show you here in a little bit that could take advantage of some of the site elements and bring a more dense, more unique, more impactful project. But to do so, and I'll explain a little bit more, to do that, we had to introduce a design that we call a podium-style structure, whereby instead of having 6 independent garden-style buildings that you see a lot here, we would have a single building where we would have parking underneath the structure as well as some surface lots. So by bringing units underneath the building, we can actually achieve more units. So that's where we were able to add about 60 additional units to this design, which would bring another capital investment of about $12 million and another at $2,000 a unit, which is what we're estimating, which would bring another $120,000 into this project using this design. However, that design is more expensive, and that's one of the elements that the TIF bond would be used to pay for or toward. The other thing that we want to introduce because of its location sitting along the Midland Trace Trail and is a trailhead investment, as we're calling it, which would introduce some public elements along that trail, still kind of on the drawing board, open to suggestions, but we have it could be a bike sharing station, a water station for the trail walkers, and a resting area. And then one other unique element that this structure will allow, whereas a garden style it doesn't, is, and it'll be new to Westfield, which would be a rooftop deck and amenity area for the project. So all told, unique elements to Westfield, we think more impactful and providing a more dense type of project here in this location. As I mentioned, we were having a little challenge with the site. There's a creek kind of coming right through it. Here's the Midland Trace and then Oak Ridge. So it's slightly irregular shaped, but we were inspired by, as we were fighting that little irregular shaped project, we came across a project that had similar site restraints. It was a project in Carmel called the Olivia on Main. And so this will help illustrate when we say podium-style garage. Next, please. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is Old Meridian Street. This is Main Street. And so you can see, if you might recall, this project has a bit of a triangle shape to it as well. The podium style, next, is, again, here's an example of that where instead of having, this is a 4-story unit, same as we have planned, but instead of having these units begin on the ground floor as a typical garden style would, we lift the structure in a single building and then we provide parking underneath that. But you can imagine, just the development cost of that podium with the structural enhancements and the like, just more expensive construction just is. Next. Here's another example of what a podium style can give you. Again, with the parking underneath, you just get a taller, more pronounced looking building, which we think will fit really well in that State Road 32 and that trails area. Next. Here's the site plan. Again, single building as versus the multiple green or garden-style walk-ups. Underneath, this structure here, as I mentioned, is 4 stories. I'll get to some renderings here in a second. Here's the Midland Trace Trail. This is that area where I mentioned that trailhead investment, which we're looking to see if we can activate a connection between the trails. And obviously, that trail is a big part of this project. And we'd like to figure out some way to make an investment along here. Again, a bike sharing station, water station, resting areas. We're trying to figure out what ways to kind of really make an investment in this area for the trail. Next, please. Here's a little more of a blow up here. Here's your that bike sharing station, for example. Next. And then, again, here's the Midland. The rooftop deck amenity is programmed down in this area so that the trail walkers, it just has a nice presence there. And then we have this really active outdoor space amenities. If you could go back a little bit, back one. Yeah, here's our outdoor element here. Patio, grilling stations, fire pits, really expansive area here, just a nice open space, pool, just another high quality elements that you would find in a high quality multifamily project. Next. Next. That's the view of the project here, again, from the Oak Ridge Road. Cars would come in off of Oak Ridge. They would enter the Podium style garage, in this case right here, and then park. There'd be a single drive aisle running up here, and then they would park kind of nose first either toward the trail or nose first into the parking lot. Same thing here. So they drive in, drive aisle going back up through here, and the cars would then nose facing 175th Street or nose out into the parking lot there. Next. So our intent is to bring a very unique project to Westfield, and we're asking for assistance with the support of the TIF bond to help offset some of these additional costs. However, we feel like we've offered a unique partnership structure here whereby there's a mechanism by which the TIF bond can be retired fully upon stabilization of the project, and that could be 3 to 5 years, and I'll speak to that here in this slide here. So in the development agreement, you'll find terms, capitalized terms used, final project budget, capital event, and so forth. But I'll walk you through just some of the concepts that's outlined in the development agreement. So for instance, the final project budget, which would be the cost of the project, which we're estimating to be $43 million, that number multiplied by 1.25 equals what's called the capital event valuation of that number right there. So for instance, in year 3 or 5, when we go to either sell the project or refinance, our construction loan, which will probably be like most construction loans, will probably have a 5-year, it might have a 20-year amortization, but it will have a 5-year maturity. So at 5 years, we're going to refinance. So that will be a trigger point in the development agreement. So either we sell the project or we refinance it, and the project will get appraised. So our goal here is to have a project that is worth, in this case, in excess of the $53,750,000. So we have every incentive on our side to have that project be valued as high as possible, right? So the way it works in the development agreement, in this case, if the project value is in excess of 125% of the cost, this figure here, we would, in the case of selling the project, we would take the proceeds from that sale and we would retire the TIF bond. Retire it. So it would be a developer-backed bond. We will likely be the bond buyer and holder at that stage. So we will simply take proceeds, pay ourselves off as the bond holder, And then that project will be, its taxes will be unrestricted 100%. There's a second scenario, which is, I don't even want to call it, I guess you could call it a Plan B, but it's really not. I mean, we don't have a Plan B. Plan A is right this, right? But let's just say, because it was fair when we were crafting this agreement that says what happens in the event that you have a value that's in excess of the project budget, and there's in other words, we made money, right? But it didn't hit this number, okay? Even in that case, we take 50% of that, the difference between the project value and the project budget, which was $2 million, we pay 50% of that down toward the TIF bond. So in this case, if the TIF bond is, again, I'm using 4.2, I'm not factoring any principal reduction here just for sake of illustration here. But the TIF bond would be reduced from 4.2 to 3.2, even in that event. But that would be a very disappointing return for us for a project of this scale and magnitude. Our company, while we're known for a lot of things, we have gotten very heavy into multifamily, not just in this market, Indianapolis, but in other markets that we work in. We have 3 multifamily projects that are slated to get started yet this summer. 2 actually broke our ground already, one in Fountain Square in Indianapolis, a second one by our offices and at South College Avenue, and then we have a third one in Broad Ripple on Monon and the 46th Street that we're slated to break ground. Each one of those projects is north of $15 million. The one on College is north of 20, and the one in Monon is also about 23. So when we're talking about raising that kind of capital amongst our investors and our lenders, if I brought in a pro forma that said I'm shooting to make that kind of return, I would not be talking to you tonight. I'd be doing something else, right? So I can't emphasize again, this is our Plan A. The project right now, when we're seeking capital, I mean, amongst those options, for instance, those 3 that I mentioned, as well as other multifamily projects in other parts of the market, Westfield is still viewed as somewhat emerging in terms of modern, new multifamily. I know there's been projects developed here in recent years. Union Flats probably the first one, most notably. There's another one in Grand Park. But in terms of history, track record, it doesn't have a lot of record to point to in terms of multifamily as versus, say, Indianapolis or other communities. So when you look at a project like this, which is very expensive, it's unique. If I were talking about a garden-style project, it would be less. It would entertain a lot less questions. Okay, hey, you're doing a garden-style project in Westfield. It's 160 units, got 6 separate buildings. Would be easier to enlist capital. So in this case, we are asking for the support of the city to help us raise the capital here. As you all know, we've been investing in Westfield for a long time in a number of ways. We're big believers in Westfield. So I'm convinced that we put this high-quality project in a wonderful part of the community. I really believe it's going to value out, and then I want to come back here in 3 to 5 years and tell you, hey, that TIF bond has been fully retired. We appreciate your help and support. So, next. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So with that, I appreciate your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or thoughts.
I've got questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what are the cap rates today? I mean, on something like this.
Yeah. So I can tell you for the 3 that I mentioned, okay, as well as the other ones, we really target a build-to cap rate of about 6.5%. I mean, it used to be 7, but it's really getting about 6.5, maybe in some cases a little less than that. But in in just about every case in terms of the exit cap rate for these projects that we've been looking to from comps as well as just market data. We're finding, and again, I'd be happy to send you this information from the market, but in Indianapolis, for instance, you'll see an exit cap rates anywhere from like 4.8, some cases 5.2.
Yeah.
So the 150 basis points spread is really, if you look at that 43 million and you apply a build to cap rate of like 6.5, and then take that same number and cap that at say 5, that's going to equal that 55 million.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of got the numbers.
And you probably know where I'm kind of going with this, right? I mean, the way I look at it is I'm saying, well, if the value of the property, let's say rates continue to rise, and expectations are, whatever they are. I mean, because we can look back even a year back, and they were much different. And I mean, it's very possible that the property doesn't get valued at 125%, depending on what rates do, et cetera. And just looking at it, I was just kind of writing down some notes. I know you and I have talked about this. I think we did on this property. If the city were willing to do this, or the city council approved this, and let's say we hit that 125%, and I was just looking at the agreement and whatever it was, I can't remember the definition. Anyways, the 125%, the capital event valuation, 125%. I mean, because really is what's happening is the city is the investor into that project. I mean, would they be willing to reimburse the city then accordingly? I mean, to whatever that potential cap rate was up into that tax that it's not probably a word, forewent, or, I mean, basically, we're an investor.
Yeah.
The taxpayers are investors in this property.
Okay.
But yet we have no benefit, truthfully, if and when it sells or values at this capital event valuation. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand what Holiday's position is, but I look at it as, and I say, look, if I was just an average Joe that wanted to say, hey, Chris, I've got $10 million. I want to put it into this, and I'm going to. I mean, the city really doesn't get any more return other than the tax dollars that they're going to get for ongoing, but the back taxes we never collect. Even though truthfully we were an investor in the project. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think I get where you're going. I mean, I just maybe want to emphasize, for instance, if we hit that capital event valuation in year 3 or 5, we are retiring that bond entirely, okay? So in that case, there's not a 75% capture rate. So the numbers that we were talking about, like at 328,000, which is the 75%, that flows right back to the city.
Yeah, ongoing,
Right.
but not
Ongoing.
in arrears, obviously.
No, you're right. Yes, I see where you're going. So in the years 3 to 5, yes, if we, until that capital event occurs, yes.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we would need that capture to support the bonds while it's there. So I guess is your question that you would want, in addition to the full retirement, call it the taxes that were captured?
The answer is
during that
yes. Yeah, for me.
Okay.
I mean, I look at it as from an investor standpoint,
Sure.
And this is really probably isn't that fair to you because I mean we haven't done this on other projects, but I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I just look at it and first of all, I'm not thrilled about apartments, obviously, but I'm saying if we did it, I mean, in the city's investor, we should get a return on our money because we're actually the investor, not just the taxes that we would have collected otherwise.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Well, I can, when we were structuring this, I think what we were doing is trying to provide every incentive. I mean, I guess our thought was, unlike a typical TIF bond that's ever been done in this community, most others, the discussion is, hey, we need you to support this project in this example of $4.2 million.
Yeah.
And we're going to issue that TIF bond for 20 to 25 years. It gets approved. Everyone walks out, but one thing for sure, that TIF bond is in place, and that 75% capture rate is in place in nearly every case I've ever seen for 20 to 25 years. So we structured it very differently. We came at it, we said, that's not a structure that, because we've talked about it. Look, in 3 to 5 years, if Holiday sells this to an insurance company, I have, we're out of it. So we would love to see those taxes not captured anymore, flow freely. So maybe we're unique in that because of our Westfield presence. So,
Yeah.
So I guess where I was going with this, we structured it from day one to provide every incentive to boost that, to get that capital event valuation so that we could dispose of the project and retire the bond. We thought that was goal number one.
Yeah.
Get the TIF bond.
Which I would do too.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you would allow me to maybe consider your question, perhaps once, if we could achieve, if we don't do anything to weaken the incentive, right, to boost that, achieve that value, to retire that TIF bond, if there's somewhere beyond that, right, that we can then get into a sharing situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could consider that.
Yeah, because I always get into it. I mean, just
Yeah.
And this is my business hat that I have to take. I mean,
Right.
take off and put it my
Understand.
municipal hat on,
Yeah.
which I don't like to do because
Yeah.
I like to keep it still business and say, well,
Mhm.
gosh, I mean, if I was an investor, this is what I would expect. I mean.
Yeah.
So-
Right. No, it's a fair question, Councilor Patton. It really is. It just, we just structured it really just, hey, let's, no one, let's face it, no one really likes to do a TIF bond, right?
Right.
So let's just accept that. And so how do we do something where we can structure from the outset, supporting the project, but also building in a way that TIF bond can go away? And I think that's unique. And again, maybe you guys have done something in a TIF scenario that's very similar to this that I'm just not aware of. But I do think this is a unique structure. And we've never seen it. We've done TIF bonds in other communities, and we're still a bondholder in one.
Yeah.
So-
Sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah.
Just keep asking questions, but I do have one more question.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to just argue with myself here just for a second because I can think of both sides of this. I mean, we have a certain size of a footprint, and I think of 223 units, and I'm just thinking of fire, safety, et cetera. And I say, well, 223 units, if we had 223 units at $350,000, that'd be generating about $700,000 in property taxes for the city approximately at 1% ongoing. And, and obviously we can't do that in this footprint, for single-family homes, right? But, I just wonder what the impact is, because those monies are going back to the bonds, and we have these 223 units, and let's just say there's 2 people in each unit on average, and so now we have 500 people here in the community that need services, and can we service those people at $128,000 a year? I'm arguing against myself a little bit, but I'm just, because I know I don't know, just kind of just thought process.
The other factor too that would help is, so we're looking at, we've already approved garden-style apartments for this location.
Yep.
What is the tax revenue that's going to come off of that development versus this one?
Right.
We're making an investment in TIF dollars to finance a bigger project, but is the return greater than if we went with the original? I mean, are we investing money to make more money? Or are we investing money and making less money? I mean, that would be something I would think would be important as well.
Chris,
That's what I was
if
going to ask,
if
if you
you
could
were-
show us.
Yeah.
If you were assembling a hedge fund, let's say, and this was one of the investments, and you were the investor, you would say, what is, besides the return that's prescribed, what is my cut of the pie, should this be very successful? I think that's the same thing that Troy's saying. What is our cut of the pie if we stick our necks out?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, again, like I said, it's a very fair question, and just to emphasize again, we really have structured this in such a way where goal one was to retire the TIF bond. So we were just trying to do everything possible, and I hate to put it this way, incentivize the developer to get, so if like in this case, if we get to 55 million and all of a sudden we take off even just using round numbers, if it was the $300,000 capture rate times 5 years, that would be 55 million less 1.5. I don't know what that does. Maybe it doesn't do anything, but it just, what I was trying to do is just not weaken the incentive to achieve what I thought was the primary goal, which was to retire this TIF bond. But fair question. I like to get to a spreadsheet, and maybe I would like to maybe noodle on that a little bit, and could I present some thoughts? That's why I appreciate Mr. President making this introduction, because I knew something like this would come up, which is very fair. So I'm glad
I think
that
it's
we
been
did
a
that.
great conversation, and, I've learned a lot through it.
Yeah.
But I also want to, no one said anything about it, I really want to tell you how impressed I was with the proposed designs of the buildings.
Oh.
I think that if we had buildings, an area that looked like that in our downtown,
Yeah.
that it would be a great attraction for the city.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'd be a.
Thank you. Yeah, we got there with the help of the APC a couple of years back, so we didn't do it alone, but, so I appreciate that. But I agree, when I look at this area, I know it's not the city's downtown, but it feels with so much investment and vibrancy, it feels like a little mini downtown, if you will. So I felt like just having that building just feel like a building as versus a set of pitched roof structures. I just really feel that'll look really nice, and plus, I just think it'll help activate that area, and I think just further support the businesses and just attract more businesses in that corridor, so.
Any questions, Councilors? Chris, thank you.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
look forward to getting back to this next month.
Yeah, great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, looks like we're down to our last final new business item. Request for proposal for Grand Junction Plaza Cafe, a Pavilion tenant document, and cafe operator RFP. Jeremy, I think you're going to address this.
Yep. It's Jeremy Lawler again with the city. No action necessary really tonight, just for your information and feedback. We would like to submit a request for proposals for a tenant for the new cafe building inside of Grand Junction Plaza. Once I get your feedback here, and if there are no objections, we'll fill in the dates on this and we'll get it posted with the intention of having a tenant in that space this summer, as soon as possible, really. We were intentionally a little open-ended on the scope because we want the community and the folks in that retail section to use their imagination of what they think they could use the space for. We envision a cafe. It's why we call it a cafe, but a tenant that would be providing some sort of refreshments. We did specify that they would be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For a couple of reasons. One set of the public restrooms is in that building, and we want those to be open. We also want the community to be able to go in and utilize, or at least look at the space initially. Also, they will, as a part of this RFP and then ultimately the contract, they will be helping us with trash collection and things and keeping the plaza as tidy as possible, in addition to our contractors that'll be on the premises as well. And then in the wintertime, they'll help us facilitate the skating rink operations. So we've we did write those things in the RFP for folks that are willing to do that. It did go out one other time, but we heard some feedback that you all hadn't been made aware, so we pulled the RFP, and then we're going to send it back out with your guys' comments. And I will apologize for that as well. Seems like I'm doing that a lot tonight. But anyway, any questions or comments about the intention or the plan for that? This is technically a city-owned property, so your all opinion is really important.
Can I ask a real general question?
Mhm.
And it's, maybe I'm missing something. So the plaza, it was under the jurisdiction during construction of the RDC. And so everything was going through there, but it's a city park and it's not an RDC project. It's a city park. Who actually has the authority and jurisdiction? I mean, the budget for it is not coming out of the TIF district, out of an EDA that I'm aware of.
So the construction costs came out of an EDA, and I will defer that question to our esteemed counsel for clarification, but the city of Westfield owns the property. Thus, they are the owner of the building. But Manny?
Nothing further to add. You captured it.
So basically, any agreements and all that are going to be coming through council and not RDC that deal with the plaza.
Technically, I think that authority is delegated to the Board of Public Works, but we certainly will keep you all in the loop. But the Board of Public Works has the contract approval for the lease.
The contracting authority for it, correct.
Okay. I did have a few concerns just with the general information scope of services. It said that, it says it's 365 days a year, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, we are going to modify that before it goes out to make holidays negotiable. We did get some feedback when it was out on the street the first time that scared some folks off. They don't want to be open every single day. And as we thought about that with that feedback, we thought that was right too. So what it will read is exactly what it says, with holidays being negotiable, or holidays and other specific days being negotiable as a part of the contract phase.
It seems like it might be tricky to try and staff this with the very specific. It has to be, all these days, 8 to 8. That's kind of just a lot to ask in today's hiring environment.
Yeah, and we did leave it in there that there could be multiple tenants if they want to partner, because when I think of this space, I think in the morning it'd be a great coffee shop. But as you can see with our coffee shops in town, specifically Rivet, they close at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, we need this open in the afternoon and the evening as well. So if they had a partner that wanted to come and occupy the space in the second half of the day, then we would be open to that too. But that was the intention. We don't know what fits here best. It's a very unique space, and we're not allowing any kind of physical modifications to the building or the structure of the building, because for obvious reasons. So we want the market to get really creative and to get something in here that's going to activate Grand Junction on a regular basis and create a reason for folks to go down there.
I know we want this up and running as quick as possible, but to have the operations open no later than May 27th just seems kind of impossible right now.
It is,
Okay.
and that date will modify as well. So that was the original date, which was the target when it went out the first time. That will change as well, and it'll push out once we have our timeline established based on what happens here today.
Okay, and is this like a revenue share kind of arrangement that you're looking at?
Also open to negotiation as part of the proposal. So that's one of the requests, is that they tell us how we are going to get compensated, whether it be revenue share or specifically rent based on the average appraisal of the leased space, or a combination of those things. So, yeah, we intentionally didn't define that because we want to know what they think they can do. What we don't want to do is someone to commit financially to more than what they can afford, and us be doing this process again in 6 months because they can't afford to sustain operations in the building.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea, too.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I just had one, I've got a typo on page 4 I'll share with you.
Okay.
Okay, after the fact, if you want.
Very good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Next item on tonight's list agenda is residents who wish to address the council. Kevin, do we have any cards?
I have one card at the moment. Ken Tucker.
My name's Ken Tucker. I live at 2003 Pheasant Run. Been there for 13 years. And during that time, a lot has changed. Some responsibly, some irresponsibly, and that's why I'm here yet again today. I know I've talked to some of you individually. I've talked to others of you over email, sat down and had other conversations, and it's about the golf cart route as it runs from Cary to Union. There is no reason why golf carts should ever be on this stretch of the trail. It's too dangerous. Trails and parks are one of the few things that I do agree make a city, and a town great. It's a rallying point for us. It's become a source of contention over the however long this trial period that seems never-ending has been going on. During the 3 or so years that my family and I have been sharing the trails with the golf carts, there's been countless times where we've almost been run over by golf carts. To call some of these turns S-curves would be doing them a disservice. They're more like Zs, and some are acute angles, where we're literally bending backwards. Just last week, and that's why I'm here today, and there's anger in my voice because I am very angry. I had to grab my children, my two daughters, and leap out of the way because somebody cut the corner way too hard right behind my subdivision, which happens all the time. I've almost been run over. Now, granted, it was after dark. I was breaking the rules as well, but me and the people that were trying to get to Park Street, my wife and I were coming home. And I thought I heard something behind me. So I grabbed my wife, we step over, we get out our phones, and here comes a golf cart. No lights, and you wouldn't have thought they had even seen us. It was one of the scariest things I've ever been a part of. Had I not heard, right, this would be a completely different story. So I'm here once again begging you to please, at the very least, reroute the golf cart path. I know there's people in golf cart communities who want to be able to drive their golf carts to Park Street. And I guess that's fine if that's what this council really wants, but from Cary to Union, it's a recipe for disaster. I've emailed, we've talked, I've said we've gone for walks, we've pointed these things out. Some of you have even pointed out other issues that I don't see because I don't live in your neighborhoods about how the golf carts are being used and abused by those that are not supposed to be on these golf carts. I'm so passionate about this, I'm taking time, yet again, out of one of my nights to come here and ask you to do this. And I've made it a point to go out and talk to all my neighbors. It's not just me. I know it seems that way. It's not just me. I've talked to 204 of my neighbors over the last 3 weeks while I've been going door-to-door knocking, not just for this, because I'm running for State House representative to be an independent candidate, and I've got to get 1,000 signatures by June 30th. So one of my questions is to my neighbors who are on the trail, those that are in Cary Commons, in my neighborhood of Pheasant Run, the people who live in the downtown Westfield Association.
That's 3 minutes.
That's 3 minutes? I know. Really? Well, I think, I'll make it really short, because I have sat there. Can we move the public comment to the beginning? Because not too many people come up here, and for me to have to sit through all this stuff like I've done multiple times, it's really kind of degrading. There's comments here that I guess I won't read, but of those 204 people, 4 people said they didn't really care either way about the golf carts. One person was adamant that she'd be able to drive her golf cart, but not on the Midland because she said it was too dangerous. She prefers to drive hers on the Monon. So think about that. There's people, and I have not seen people on the Monon, but she tells me that's where she likes to drive her golf cart is on the Monon, and that's ridiculous. All 204 of those people are sickened by all the trees we've cut down on the Midland and over there on just in between Union and Meridian. And I know it's a strategic plan and the whole thing, and I do have some other questions. The old fire station downtown, is that staying or
Where's that going? I'm also waiting to hear back from the Parks Department, Mr. McConnell, on some permits about public gatherings at Grand Junction. Thought I would throw that out there as well. And there's more here, but if I'm over my time, I'm over my time. I've made myself perfectly clear to everyone on this council and previous ones. Like I've said, the mayor and I have talked. I've gone with walks on some of you. We've traded emails, and I refuse to just wait for something bad to happen. I try to be pragmatic in everything that I do, and I would like for you guys to do that as well. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry I went over, but I'm doing what I can.
Thank you, Ken.
I do have a second card. Ben Fruling. Is that close?
Yeah, very good. Ben Fruling, thank you. Yep, Ben Fruling, 2210 Pheasant Run. I have a slightly different perspective, but I think they're pretty close. I'm looking to address the unenforced regulations, specifically the vehicles on the Midland Trace Trail after the park is closed. I've set video to capture them, the vehicles, the golf carts, but the problem is the camera I could afford doesn't trigger fast enough because the golf carts are moving at such a speed that I can't actually capture the golf carts. There's not enough light to be driving at that speed in that area, and it's a safety risk. I'm not inherently against golf carts on the trail, but these ordinances have created people that are abusing the system. They're basically ignoring what you guys set out in your rules and regulations about respecting the park. I don't think the regulations are enforced enough. Some of these requirements are that they get a sticker for $35 from the police department, but that sticker does no good. I can't identify a sticker on a golf cart in the middle of the night at 1 a.m. If you at least required license plates, I could give the police officers a license plate. As it is now, I have no way to inform the police officer who it was, and when it's reoccurring. Because I can tell you, if you had a police officer on my behalf, please do this spring, when the weather is 50 degrees and above on Friday and Saturday night between 10 and 1 a.m., you would get these people and you would presumably get them to stop. But that hasn't happened, and I've called the police, I've called the city council, and I frankly don't know what to do. When I've talked to the police, they've informed me that they do not leave their squad cars. So basically, there's no reason for me to call. Honestly, I would give you the dates I called the police if you'd like. We can look and see if they filed reports. My guess is they have not, which I feel is a fairly serious accusation in my opinion. And I guess just generally speaking, I believe the ordinance was passed in good faith, but is being abused, and I don't think you should stand up for that. I don't think you should accept that. And like I said, I've addressed the council, I've sent emails, I've made recordings, I've contacted the police. And I guess I would respectfully ask for suggestions of how to address this to try to keep my neighborhood safe, keep my kids safe, my neighborhood's kids safe. Anything, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, any Mr. Carson? Okay. Do you have any comments from the clerk treasurer tonight? Cindy?
No, I do not.
City council comments? Cindy, do we have a report from the APC?
We do. It was a shorter meeting on April 4th. We approved the consent agenda for a detailed development plan for Goodwill on Spring Mill Point Drive. We had 2 public hearings, the Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 5, the Grand Park Village PUD Amendment 4. And then also for ARPA, we did not have a meeting. We will be having our next one April 22nd at 2 o'clock. I did want to say they're normally here and recorded, but because of voting, we're going to have to relocate. We'll be at City Services at 2 o'clock on the 22nd, if anyone is interested in attending those. And again, those applications are due for nonprofits by the 15th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilors, any other?
Yeah,
Gilbert?
in line with Volunteer Appreciation Month, on the 22nd, Kayla, that's our first Movies in the Park, right? We'll be showing the Lorax, so can't wait. But the Wellbeing Coalition will set up tables for nonprofits in Grand Junction to capture any volunteers. So if you or anyone else is interested in volunteering and looking for opportunities to volunteer for local nonprofits, the Wellbeing Coalition is hosting Help Your Neighbor Night before the Lorax is shown, so that maybe some of the moviegoers can sign up to help some of our local nonprofits as well. That will run from 7 p.m. until dusk when we start the movie. Help Your Neighbor Night.
Just real quick, Finance Committee, I think everybody's back from spring break, so hopefully maybe we can get together next week, possibly. We'll see. I mean, I need to get with Joe and everybody, but we'll address the Playhouse payments, Grand Park financial statements, which I have done through 2021, and then hopefully we can start on the project that we were talking about, because I'd still like to see that information, so. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilors? Hearing none, I have no comments. Mr. Mayor? I do not. Well, then, we will adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you.